If you have a poorly lit garage as mine is right now, and you want to increase the lighting throughout the entire garage without breaking the bank, then you'll want to stay tuned as we transform this garage from something that looks like this to this. If you've seen any of my videos before, you probably guessed that these two big softboxes are my primary light sources. And these are Amaran 200Ds, so it's definitely enough for content creation. But when it comes to the garage and just getting things or coming in and out of the garage, this is pretty much all the light I have, which is why it's so bright over there and pretty dim over here, because all that I really have is this one light bulb over here, which is tethered to a lamp that has like 2 LEDs and 1 halogen bulb. So that basically means that everything on that end of the garage, because of this beam, doesn't get enough light. So if I need to go into the cabinet or my tool cart, I have to use a flashlight. To solve our problem, we'll be using the Barina T5 LEDs. Here we have 2 boxes of the 3-footers and 1 box of the 4-footers, with each box containing 6 fixtures. Just be careful when you do your measurements because these fixtures don't run exactly 3 foot and 4 foot. They run a little bit short. And the same thing goes for the 2-footers and 8-footers, so just be aware of that when you're measuring out your garage. For frame of reference, this garage is a 20 by 20, and the 20 in terms of front to back starts from this beam, not necessarily the recessed wall, but this beam all the way to the garage door. And I'm just fortunate enough that what these fixtures lack in their 20-foot total length that I have is gonna be mostly taken up by this center beam. As a side note, if you're a content creator or if you just prefer a warmer light, make sure to get the 5000K versus the 6500. 5000K is closer to daylight, which lands right around that 5600 mark, and which is also what my big softboxes are outputting right now. But if you want more of a traditional office space or mechanic shop, then you'll want to land at that 6500, which has that slightly bluish tint to it. And here we have a great example of what we were just talking about, because coming from my softboxes, you can see that pure daylight at 5600. And just coming out of the corner on the beam, you see that bluish tint, and that's coming from my 3 light lamp at the top here, and those bulbs have that 6500 color. Now this video isn't sponsored or anything, but these lights come highly recommended from pretty much everybody who's on YouTube. Not only the lights themselves, but the company. More specifically, their warranty and willingness to process the warranty, even if the lights and the warranty is kind of at their last leg. So that's the reason why I went with them, in addition to the fact that they offer them in a variety of sizes and color temperatures. But these kits in general, the thing that I really like about them is that they offer everything that you need for the installation, including the power switch. And I like that it's not just a cable, but you also have an on-off switch there, which if you have 2 of these set up, it's really useful to say turn off half of the garage, or if you want, you can have everything on at the same time. You have an extended cable here to connect them, which is really good for our beam. All the hardware, including the mounting clips, as well as the flush connectors, that way you can line them up all next to each other, as well as the screws. And all of the screws and mounts look pretty dainty. These lights are very, very light, even the 4-footer. So long as you kind of space them out accordingly, it's gonna be fine. You don't need to go into a stud or anything. That's definitely overkill. If you wanted to hardwire it, say to a light switch, you could also do that. And then they give you even the end clip. So that way, the very last LED is gonna be protected from moisture or anything like that.
So to start off the install, determine where you want your lights to hang. In my case, I prefer to have them right over where the toolbox drawers will open up. Now you don't need a laser level or have to pre-drill since it's just going in the drywall. But it does make things much easier, and since I wasn't in a rush and already have these items, I figured I might as well use them. However, I did run into a slight fitment issue. My garage would have fit these lights perfectly if it wasn't for the power cables. This slight change in length forced me to reconfigure it to 2 3-footers and 1 4-footer on the garage door side, and 2 4-footers on the other side of the beam. Since this was the first strip, I gave myself plenty of space with the light that was linked to power. Since it is going to be connected to an extension cord, then I worked from the other side to ensure even coverage. because now there's going to be a slight gap at the end of each strip. Once I determined the light configuration, the install went by quickly since all I had to do was drill in the bracket along the laser and connect the lights, which lined up and plugged in perfectly with the flush connector, thanks mostly in part to the level. As for the beam, the long connection had more than enough slack to go around it, as it has a total length of 47 inches. And with the first strip fully up and connected, it's time to move on to the other side, where another problem arose.
Because of where my garage is mounted, I'm not able to get it in the same desired location on the other side for this toolbox. So it's gonna have to come out just a little bit.
Because of this issue, the laser level was more useful on this side as it allowed me to line up the lights as close as possible to the bracket. Another feature of these LED lights that I really like is that they have the frosted cover that acts as a light diffuser, allowing the light to spread evenly opposed to the clear cover that could have hot spots and be very harsh on the eyes. With the 2 strips in, we can remove the old lights and prepare the power source. I went with this dual 3-prong light socket adapter because from the older videos on YouTube, I noticed that the fixtures of 4 foot or longer had 3-prong power cords, but both this 3-foot and 4-foot kit now have 2-prong cords. So at least we're future-proofed. But if you notice any changes to this, please leave it in the comments.
And with the lights in position right where we need them, the next thing that we need to do is to cover up the cables and the extension cable that we'll have along the back in order to have a really clean look. For that, we'll be using these cable covers. The thing that I really like about this system is that it's super easy to work with in terms of cutting it to the length that you need, because it does come in 4 feet sectionals. They even come with the end pieces that help you go around corners, and if you need to connect something that's longer than 48 inches, they also have the connection piece for that as well. Now, the thing that I don't like about this system, and most cable management systems that do provide double-sided tape, is the actual double-sided tape that they provide. This one in particular uses that white foam double-sided tape that if you ever needed to peel it off, doesn't come off cleanly, and that white foam, some of it will stay onto the surface. And to be honest, any double-sided tape that you use on painted surfaces, as we're about to do, is more than likely to peel off the paint. But in the rare occasion that you might need to pull it off, at least if you used your own double-sided tape on top of the foam in this case, it will pull off the paint cleanly, or it will pull it off in one piece versus having to pull it off in patches and then having to scrape off that white foam double-sided tape. And if you're curious, this is the double-sided tape that I'm using for this install. It's just what I had lying around the house and not something that I bought for this particular install. Because in all honesty, you could just use the double-sided tape that comes with your cable management system. If you're using it for just one cable, as we are in this case, it should be okay.
The middle section where the long cable goes across the beam was easy enough with the elbow pieces. All I had to do was cut the 3 pieces I needed for each side and connect them with the respective elbow piece, which was different at the top and bottom. Luckily, the beam was even on both sides and neither had obstructions to overcome, so I only needed to cut 2 different lengths here. Just make sure it's lined up perfectly with the light before pressing it in. It was actually the socket ends that required some creativity, especially the one with the extension cord. The side closer to the socket was easy enough, just a couple straight pieces in an L configuration, but I didn't use an L connector. I had to make a notch on the lower cover for a slightly tighter turn to reduce the space in between the cable management run and the base of where that socket adapter runs in. It was actually the other side that gave me more trouble, as I wanted one solid piece over the door and had a few more obstacles to overcome. From the door to the socket was easy enough. I just passed the cables from one T connector to another, running the cover on the top side this time to have a symmetrical look. Even the covers coming off the fixtures were easy enough to blend in with the supplied curved pieces. Here I just cut the pieces as I needed them, because this side has the extension cable in addition to the light switch. So I just ran it to the end of the fixture's cable before addressing the other side of the door where the problem spots are. Since the bottom of the beam isn't level with the door trim, I had to make a piece that could accommodate this, as well as the wires in the area. Now to accommodate for that slight change in height, all I did was cut a little slit here right along the top, and on the back side I had to hollow out pretty much the back end portion of it for that wire that runs from the bottom up, and then create this little channel here so that the wire can pass through this cable management portion and up through the T section over the door. And this is right where the wire that runs below will run up and through, leaving us with a front piece that looks something pretty clean like this. And then on the other side is where we are going to have the notched out straight connection to accommodate those cables. And that is where this will end up. I knew that this whole strip right here was going to give me a problem, and I'm glad that I was able to figure it out. So if you need anything at all from this video, everything is going to be linked in the description. However, there was one more issue right after that custom piece, which is why I didn't run one long strip here.
And the problem I'm talking about can be better seen from the underside once the strips are on. As you can see here, the beam is a little bit uneven as it approaches this corner. And not even this small piece is fully on the beam, even after layering on some additional double-sided tape. And because I didn't want the strip that supports most of the extension cable to have an unsecured end, I split it up right here. And in the event that this pops off, at least the cord is mostly secured into place. And even after returning one of the boxes we weren't able to get up on the ceiling, from the 2 boxes we actually used, I had 2 fixtures left over, one of which is going to light up the top of this roller cabinet and get rid of the shadow that's caused by these hanging cabinets, giving us a nicely well-lit working space whenever we need it. And with the lights now fully installed, I'm glad to see that the other concern that I had of them being too bright isn't really an issue. Because if you go on any of the other videos on YouTube, people are going to say that these lights are really bright. And I even did a test fit with the lights that I thought were going to go on, and even with that setup, it's not too bright. But just keep in mind, we're really only nipping the 2 feet at the ends. So where we have the lights positioned, no matter what storage solution that we're going into, we have enough lighting. And a good example that we can do here on camera is looking at these 2 roller cabinets that we have here on the floor, as well as the one that we have here hanging up. This one over here, even though with the trim being fully black, you can still see the definition of the handles. But when we look to the blue as well as the gray, it's not super blown out and really bright. I think what we have here, or if you can fit in what we thought was going to be the 20 by 20 configuration originally, this is really the sweet spot for a garage of this size. And so now that I have enough lighting in this garage, I can finally get over to transferring over the tools from this Hart cabinet to this US General 3 cabinet, because it is gonna free up a little bit more space for us here in this garage. So if you wanna see the tools that we were able to fit in this, make sure to check out this video, and I'll see you in that one.